all right, Alex.
No,
I'm
Dave.
sorry.
Dave.
I didn't mean it.
Dave, I'm always going to be a Lions fan. I don't care what you say. 100% will always be a Lions fan. I just won't draft the players on my team if it goes against my interest. But my team's going to be good for a while. I feel like what you're saying is, Dave, you know what? Hey, we haven't welcomed anybody back to the Four Birdies podcast.
Welcome to the Four Borders podcast.
Welcome back. I'm one of your hosts, Alex. This is Dave. Dave's being a bit of a jerk right now, basically saying that I'm a user, that I'm just getting started on my fantasy football addiction, and then I'm going to be rooting against the interests of my own team. So thanks a lot, Dave. I thought we were friends.
I didn't mean to strike a nerve. I'm sorry. I take it back. You don't need professional help. You're fine.
Dave, when I moved out to the West Coast and my parents moved out a couple years later, I was in Seattle, then moved down to Oregon, and my parents were in Oregon, so everybody rooted for the Seahawks out there. They were pretty good then. I don't know if you recall, but they won a Super Bowl. And so my dad and I would watch football games together, and the Lions would lose all the time, like, just cursing the TV, all this, all that. And my dad's like, Al, maybe you should give up rooting for the Lions. And that made me even angrier. I dug my heels in even more, and I was like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I don't care. This is what dreams are made out of. This is romanticism in a sport. So I'm never giving up, Dave. That's my story.
That's admirable. I respect that.
Thank you. The man who's wearing the cheaters hat right now, the Wolverine cap.
Alleged cheaters.
A legend.
There was no knowledge. What if it comes out that he never actually relayed any of that information to any of the other coaches? He just kept it in for himself. So how do you know?
Right. And there is something called due process. So until that's actually been established and happened, then I don't care what anybody else is saying. You got to go through the proper channels of the legal system. And scrutiny.
I don't like to jump to conclusions. I'm going to wait like a solid, and even if you wait and then they come out with a report, you never know if that report's going to get refuted down the line. So I would say I'm going to reserve judgment for the next probably like 10 or 15 years to really gather all of the facts and information. Right now, the Wolverines are 8-0. I think they're like 2 in the nation. Are they 2 or 3 in the nation? They're having a phenomenal season. I'm not going to think too much about what kind of possible sanctions are going to happen. So I'm not worried about any of it.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried, actually.
as you should be. It's quite unfortunate. I feel like couldn't they have done probably relatively as well if they didn't supposedly do that cheating? There is no relative in college football, though. It's all zero-sum games and win or loss. You can't lose any games, so there's no margin for error in college football. That's the thing. That's like in the NFL, right? You could just squeak into the playoffs and then, go on a tear. But in college football, if you have 2 losses, you're out.
Here are my thoughts on college football and college sports in general. Every team is doing everything possible to gain an edge, and sometimes that line is blurred with what's within the rules and what's outside of the scope of the rules. And I feel like teams are always pushing the envelope. To me, I don't know the rules well enough to know, like, this is an obvious example of cheating, but I can tell you every single team out there has some dirt on them. It's just a question of, is it going to come out? So there's teams right now that are keeping like very quiet on the situation because they know they have skeletons in their closet. So Michigan's probably not perfect. I think their image has been tarnished over the last several years with Harbaugh buying that recruit a burger. I mean, just what a terrible situation. And then now it's a bad look for the university.
Yeah, definitely not good. Still better than putting Hitler on your scoreboard like Michigan State did in the Michigan State game. Still a better look than that. Strangely, somehow when you put Hitler up on your board, then that's the worst look, really. Dave, this is getting a little morbid. I'm starting to feel a little down. All this cheater talk and genocide starting to make me feel a little, down, I suppose. Do you have anything that's going to make me laugh? Any ha-has by chance?
Speaking of ha-has, I'd like to talk about a little segment we like to call That Didn't Help Anyone. We also call it the TD-ha. TD also stands for touchdown. I think it's a perfect phrase. This is a play where it doesn't help anyone, just like the name suggests. It's usually a rushing touchdown by a fullback, or it's a passing touchdown from a backup quarterback to a wide receiver four. Essentially, I think you guys get the idea. Any sort of touchdown that doesn't help anyone.
Anyone.
These players are 0% rostered. So there's a handful of TD Ha examples from Sunday, and I want to just kind of go over them. And now that you know what they are, you can kind of keep your eyes peeled for the next one from next week. But one of them is, I'm going to look here.
Dave, while you look, don't you think that some of the moms would be rostering some of these guys? Like, wouldn't you be a pretty crappy mom if you're not even rostering your own son on your fantasy football team?
You bring up a good point. I still think I feel like it'd still be less than like 0.001% of all leagues would have this particular player rostered. One of them is Keaton Mitchell, running back for the Ravens. He's a rookie. I think he was a 5th-round pick. He had a rushing touchdown against the Seahawks.
Who didn't have a rushing touchdown against the Seahawks? Am I right? Am I right? Let's go.
Did Lamar Jackson, in a game where they put up over 30 points, Lamar Jackson only got 11 fantasy points, which I think was pretty bad. But Keaton Mitchell had a rushing touchdown for the Ravens. I'm pretty certain that not many people had him in their starting lineup. If Keaton Mitchell is playing fantasy football, I don't think he would have started himself, to be honest. So that's one example of a TD Ha that didn't help anyone.
Hey, Dave, I do have to say Lamar Jackson getting, 10 or 12 points, that might not have been good for them, but it was good for me because I was playing as sorry, but so I was quite happy about that.
Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah. And to me, that's an example of fantasy football making you root for and against, and yeah. So
one more example of a TD Ha was brand new Vikings quarterback Josh Dobbs, fresh out of Arizona in a trade. It's great the Vikings picked him up once Cousins went down, because Jaron Hall immediately went out with an injury, and they called Josh Dobbs into action, and he promptly scored a rushing touchdown. And I'm pretty confident nobody started Josh Dobbs, even though he is a starting caliber quarterback at this point. He was not supposed to play that game. So that was definitely a TD Ha. When I saw him rush for that, I was like, well, Madison could have gotten that. That could have been a pass to Addison. But instead, Josh Dobbs runs it in. That's just a terrible feeling for a fantasy football manager to know I've got players on this offense and I need them to score touchdowns. And then a guy like Josh Dobbs scores a rushing touchdown. So TD Ha, shout out to Josh Dobbs. And on top of that, he actually was involved in another TD Ha later on in the game. Josh Dobbs threw a touchdown pass to Brandon Powell. Pretty sure nobody has Brandon Powell on their teams, and nobody has Josh Dobbs, like I said. So that's a double TD Ha. Never seen that before.
well, somebody might have had Powell. I think Powell might have had himself, right? So you got to say that somebody might have had him. But did Dobbs even have himself, right? Unless it's some kind of nefarious plot that he knew that he was going to get in and actually start playing. But if he's playing fantasy football, he can't even pick himself, right? I mean, that's a classic example of that didn't help a damn person.
It's that didn't help anyone. I'm almost positive no one started Brandon Powell. If you're starting Brandon Powell, that's the deepest of the leagues you could possibly be in. That's an 18-team league right there. If you're in a 10-team or a 12-team league and you're starting Brandon Powell, you're in trouble. So double TD Ha right there. And those were all the TD Ha's that I could think of from week 9.
They weren't that funny. I got to be honest. They weren't that funny.
Well, Ha stands for help anyone.
Oh, right, yeah.
Laughter.
Yeah.
Get it?
It's such a good name that I just think like it's a touchdown, haha. But it's 5D chess, and more of your 5D chess here, Dave. I love it. You're an idea man. Has anybody ever told you that?
No, if you think about it, it is a TD that you laugh at because you're like, that didn't help this is bullshit.
Yeah.
That didn't help anyone.
Yeah, that's rough.
So you're more of a fan and not a fantasy football manager, but when you become an actual fantasy football manager, these TD hows are really going to grind your gears. You'll see.
Yeah, I bet. Dave, I would, don't sell me so sure. I do keep my eye on the waiver. I keep my eye on, I picked up Kyler Murray a couple weeks ago, and like we had talked about in another episode, and you said if somebody were smart out there that you'd pick up Kyler Murray, put him on the IR. And I said, Dave, guess what? I was that person. I actually did it. And you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen this week? Jalen Hurts is on his bye. Kyler Murray's going to get in there. He's going to start. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've been waiting for Kyler Murray to come back all year, and I'm excited to see what he does out there.
Now, is he going to put up a bunch of points? I don't know. I mean, like, I would err on saying no. He's probably not going to have a great game, but I don't know. Nobody knows.
The newest Call of Duty comes out soon, and I think it's going to coincide with his debut. So part of me does worry how much time is he going to be spending on the game versus, the football game. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping he performs, though.
What a bomb.
He has to. You know what I mean? If he doesn't put up some good numbers. Well, here's the thing. If he plays well, I feel like the Cardinals are likely to trade him. If he doesn't play well, the Cardinals are likely to trade him. At this point, is the writing on the wall that they're going to move on?
So,
Murray, I don't know.
Implying that they're going to have one of the first picks in the draft, right? They're going to get Caleb Williams. But he wants to own part of the franchise. Now, are the Cardinals willing to part with part ownership of the franchise? I'm not sure. But I'm assuming that's what you mean, right? They're going to draft somebody in the draft? Or they're going to pick a QB?
I think at the beginning of the season, it was kind of a no-brainer that they would go for Caleb Williams, but I think that Caleb Williams' stock is way down over the last month. He's lost a lot of games, hasn't looked great, hasn't showed like the mental fitness to handle those losses. I feel like he might not be the no-brainer number one pick anymore.
Remember when he cried after the game?
I didn't see that. I'm not going to tell somebody that they shouldn't be emotional over a game, but I didn't see the clip. I'm going to reserve judgment on that.
Oh, man, it's bad.
A chance of him coming onto the show one day.
That's true. I do just want to say it looked pretty bad. I don't know if it was his mom or somebody had like a white piece of paper like covering his face, so it just looked even worse. It was like, okay, let's not draw a lot of attention. Okay, the cameras are on him. Somebody's trying to cover his face from crying. His helmet was still on. It's like you could cry with your helmet on. Nobody's going to really notice. But when you're like melting in somebody's arms and they're covering your face with something, then it's like, ooh, this is not a good look. Normally I'm not like. Normally I think, okay, you're an athlete. That's what you do. You play the sport. You love it, and you're gonna die on the field. And I get that. But it wasn't like it was a championship game. I mean, it was their third loss in the season. Like, what are his expectations at this point?
Sounds awkward. I'll have to look the clip up.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. It was one of those things where I was like, this is bad. And I don't know if it made like the TV circuit and all the rounds or anything, but it wasn't a good look. Dave, coming into week 10, I just want to let you know a little nugget in my mind for my fantasy team. Coming into week 10, I've got Hurts out and I have Rashee Rice out. Philly and the Eagles are not playing. That's going to hurt a lot of people. Speaking of who it's going to hurt Cass Money, only here for Jimmy. She's got A.J. Brown's going to be out. She has Philadelphia's defense. She also has Kansas City's defense. She can't play either one of them. Harrison Butker's out. On another note, she has Daniel Jones as her quarterback. I feel like I'm going to hit her hot. I feel like I'm coming in, and I feel like I stand a pretty good shot of dethroning the champion of the league right now.
You might have to cut all that out. I feel like there's lots of innuendo there. You're going to hit her hot. You're coming. I just feel like if Sean catches wind of this, if he watches this, he might have a serious problem with you talking about, coming from behind on Cassie. You just have to cut out the last.
Oh, I'll talk about that with anybody, including you, Dave. I'll come in from behind. I'll hit you hot. In fantasy football terms, of course. That's
I'm hoping this doesn't make it on the air.
The modifier.
Cut this whole thing out. Back to what you were saying about Cassie, facing this adversity of lots of her players on a bye. That's going to be a true test of her mental fitness, is how does she navigate these buys? Who does she drop? Does she pull off trades? One of the advanced techniques is you don't drop anybody. You just have a empty slot in your roster, and you just take the risk, of, hey, I might lose, but I can't drop this person. So if she can't pull off some 2-for-1 trades, then, and she can't pick up anybody off the waivers, maybe she'll just be okay giving you this win because she's in first place. She's got a commanding lead. I think it's sometimes better to just succumb to the loss rather than drop players that someone else is going to instantly pick up. So I think she's in a good position here. If you beat her, you can't be too happy about it. She's got all those players on the
Dave, I would never beat a girl, let alone anyone, okay? I just don't appreciate you going there. I was talking about just matching her up in this fantasy football terms, but I'm not going to beat anybody, you psycho.
Do you think this is why she's been doing so well? Is everyone scared to beat a girl?
Yeah. Yikes.
I wanted to beat her. I didn't pull any punches. I started my best lineup, and she still got me.
I know, and you did not end up beating her. She also has TJ the Bum Hawkinson, and he's questionable. That's why I mentioned him. And then Josh Downs, which I'm not super familiar with Josh Downs. Shed a little light on who that guy is, because it looks like he's a wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts.
So Josh Downs, rookie wide receiver, I can tell you in our Dynasty League, he fell to probably the 3rd round. Nobody wanted to touch him. He was, I think, maybe the 8th, 9th, or 10th wide receiver selected in our draft. And everyone was looking what's going on with this guy? Why does nobody want him? Finally, he got selected probably mid-3rd round. And he's been a gem for the Colts so far. Minshew's looking to him often. Now he is suffering from a knee injury right now. I don't know how serious the injury is, but he's put up some great performances so far as a rookie on a terrible Colts team. But I feel like Minshew just has his number. He's peppering him with targets. I think it's great. Now Cassie has him, and he's going to be injured. He's probably going to miss next week, so that does help your chances about winning against her, Alex.
Yeah, beating her is what I. Yeah, beating her. Dave, I was looking at all the stats on the YouTube channel, and, it not only tells us if you're watching this video and not liking and subscribing, so we know exactly who you are. So if you're not liked and subscribed to the channel yet, then do so right now because we can see where you're based out of and all that stuff. It also tells me that the 19-20 minute mark of these videos is the sweet spot length. So I think we're running out of time, unfortunately. You got any last thoughts to share with us before we let the crowd go?
One more thing to say. I have a little segment I like to call an itty bitty TV committee. All right. And this is a little segment where we point out where an offense with a running back by committee scores just one small touchdown. And the candidate this week was the Cleveland Browns backfield against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think most people knew that the Cardinals were going to be in trouble this matchup here. I think actually, just a tangent here, this was the first time a rookie quarterback didn't score any points at all in his debut. So terrible for Clayton Tune. But the itty bitty TD committee consists of Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford, and Pierre Strong. And on all the points he scored against the Cardinals, just one touchdown by Kareem Hunt, which actually saved his fantasy day. So lots of teams right now, their backfields are committees. If you could think of a backfield that only scores one small TD, they're going to be candidates for the itty bitty TD committee award for that week. So week 9 goes to the Browns, to Kareem Hunt.
I love it, Dave. You're a freaking idea man. That's why we're doing this together. You come up with all the good ideas. I just along for the ride. So everybody else, thanks for being here along for the ride, and we'll see you next time on the Four Birdies podcast.